Help, it's the holidays. I know so many of us can be overwhelmed by the upcoming season and all the expectations that come along with it. So, for the next several weeks, we're going to be helping you by encouraging you to focus on the real reason for the season and to create memories that will last a lifetime. Guys, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Courtney Doyle, and this is the place I am giving you permission to not have it all together. Welcome back to the show. Help, it's the holidays. I have tried to bring a variety of topics that we are facing leading up to the holidays to you guys. I've had a therapist on, and we've talked about valuing ourselves and setting boundaries and what does that look like. I've had several guests on. We've talked about how do we slow down? How do we really enjoy the holidays versus overschedule ourselves? We've talked about adult kids. It's so hard when your kids now have their own families. How do we navigate that? How do we navigate blended families? But this is a topic that every single person is going to experience in their life. When you experience it, we don't know. I certainly did not expect that going into this holiday, I would go in grieving. And I do want to say my guest today is an expert, as she calls herself. She's an expert on grief. And I just want to say, Amy, welcome to the show. It's no surprise to me that your original scheduled date for us to have this conversation actually fell on the day of my father's funeral. And when I saw that, I knew immediately that this was not a conversation that I needed to cancel and not have. It was, God was like, you need to talk to Amy because
Yeah.
she is going to give you some great encouragement on how to walk through this time grieving. And I'm going to stop talking. I want to turn the mic over to you, Amy. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your family. And then let's jump into help. It's the holidays and I'm grieving.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for having me. I was looking forward to this so much. And whenever we canceled and postponed, I was like, please, Lord, let it happen because it's so busy right now. And just finding a little bit of time is almost impossible. You should see around me right now. It's like Christmas has exploded.
Yeah.
And I know everybody's feeling that, but also I'm so honored to be on just to share my heart for other women or other people that are going through a hard time and grieving during the holidays. Like you said, I feel like I'm an expert at grief and especially during the holidays because we actually lost our almost 3-year-old daughter 12 years ago this Christmas Eve. And Christmas Eve is actually my birthday as well. And it's just been a long, long 12 years. Makes me want to cry talking about it, of course.
I'm
But
sure.
the Lord has been so faithful to us. We actually had a daughter 18 days after Aries passed away. So, and 18 means life in Hebrew. And that came to my attention actually by a person that I didn't even know that followed our story. She mentioned that, and I researched the heck out of it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's true. God had given us life after such a tragic death. And that was really the first promise that I saw that God showed us. He gave us life after such a hard heartache. Now, it didn't change the heartache at all. It just brought back some joy. And that's my biggest purpose is that, or I feel like that's my biggest message is you can live with deep grief and have joy at the same time.
Mm.
And then also we have a 8-year-old daughter now too. So currently Aries would be 14. She would be 15, which is insane to say.
Wow.
Yeah, in January. And then her sister is 11. She'll be 12. I cannot believe that. Preteen. Did you do a segment on preteen? Because I need that.
I've got a few things on that age group. Yeah, because I'm
Yeah.
in the thick of that with a 13-year-old, so I
Yeah.
get it.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And then we have an 8-year-old daughter, and she will be 9 in March. So we're all girls. My husband actually, when we got our dog, he was like, okay, my stipulation is it absolutely has to be a boy and he'd be a large animal that he can run with and feel dignified. And we have a girl dog who's about this big. And
I
when
see your
said that-
husband didn't win.
no. So we're all girls here and then him. But we live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm part of the storytellers team. I told my story, and that's how you and I connected.
Yeah.
I interviewed you for our Patreon page. But I shared my story in 2018 with storytellers and just stuck around since then. And
Yeah.
but that's I feel like God has just given me this story. And when you were talking about coincidences, there are so many things in our story that I'm like, oh, that is not a coincidence. That is Lord Almighty ordaining that moment or that experience, that you have to open your eyes to see it.
Mm.
And I'm so grateful that God's given me so many of those moments. And I love sharing. And I just thank you so much for having me today.
Well, I'm glad that you're here, and it's not an easy story, and you are so gracious to share it. I don't know that I could be so brave, but I'm going to take you back 12 years ago
Yeah.
to Christmas Eve.
Oh,
Will you share with us as little or as much as you would like to share about that Christmas 12 years ago?
sure. I was turning 29. My husband and I had been married. Let's see, we got married at 23. And Reese was born when we were 26 in 2010. My husband and I were like, okay, let's have a spring baby because my birthday is December 24th. His is the 22nd. And then Aunt Reese's was the 18th. And we tried for a spring baby. We were going to try for a spring baby, but turns out we didn't have to because we got pregnant before that. And that's another part of our story that I just love because we didn't plan that baby, but God did. And He knew that we were going to need her, Jane, 18 days after Aries passed away. If we had waited for a spring baby, that would look completely different. And maybe we wouldn't have seen that promise being fulfilled of life after death. But anyway, back to Christmas Eve. So I'm 8 months pregnant, almost 9 months pregnant. And my dad always has a birthday party and Christmas celebration for me and my husband Christmas Eve at his farm. And this year was special. My parents are divorced, but my mom and stepdad came to the party as well. We just blended all together.
Mhm.
And honestly, Ann Reese was really the reason for that. They weren't really there to see me. They could care less. They were there to see their grandbaby.
Yeah.
Spend as much time with her as possible. That morning, so I'm gonna take you back to the morning. Ann Reese and I woke up and she's loving on my belly. She called baby Jane, baby Zane, because she couldn't say her J's. And I know, I just love that. I can just picture her loving on my belly. And she gave me a birthday present that morning. So we ran downstairs and baked a cake. We baked a chest cake, which is like a family favorite. And she's got snotty nose sitting on the counter, two different socks on. And we're just making the cake together. And I just playing Christmas songs in the background. And that is forever a moment that I will remember and cherish because it was the last time that she was in our home. And I didn't know that was the last time, but I'm so grateful for that morning that we got to cook and bake together. So we left the house to go to my dad's, and I remember shutting the door and feeling this overwhelming sense of something isn't right. I had this like urge to remember the moment for some reason. I don't know. I feel like God was preparing me all day for what was coming. So we leave, we go to my dad's house, and I remember we're literally on his street. We turn his street, and I have another thought of, oh, my life is just so perfect. I have the perfect husband. Look at this beautiful baby in the back seat. My 2-year-old daughter, she's going to be a big sister to this baby in my belly who's growing great. And I had that moment of peace and just like pure joy. And so we get to my dad's. We do a hayride. My dad had actually built a swing set for this day for all the grandkids. And Reese was the youngest. And we blew out the candles. I actually have a really sweet picture of me and my husband and Anne Reese in our cake. And we blew out the candles and she helped us. We all ate the cake. And then it was time for Christmas presents. And so she actually got this sweet little stroller and a stuffed animal. And so she's pushing it around. And my dad had given her the stroller, my dad and my stepmom, and they didn't put it together. It was in a box. I'm like, Dad, really? A little kid, you gotta go ahead and put the stuff together because you know what they're going to want to do. So my dad puts together the stroller and she's off. She's just rolling around and we're sitting on the porch and the swing set is probably about 30 yards away from us. And my older nieces were swinging and we're just having the best time chatting, kids playing, just such a picturesque moment of just the Christmas joy, spending time with your family. And I'm actually I was sitting on the swing with my dad, and my mom had already left, and she texted me and she said that because we were supposed to go by her house. And she said, "When are y'all coming? Hurry up and I'm ready for y'all to get here." So I look down at the text and I look back up. I see the kids doing their thing. And then I look back down. It was about 3:30 when she texted me back. And then I heard a crash. And when I looked up, I could see the swing set was on top of Aunt Reese. Um, um, yeah, that unfortunately, it's a memory that I will never be able to let go of. Everybody went to work, rushed to her. My family started working on her. So the swing set, my nieces who have grieved this greatly, jumped off at the same time, and the swing set wasn't secured to the ground, and it fell. And when it fell, it just hit Eris in the back of the head. Not their fault, of course.
No,
I've
no.
talked to both of them about it a lot, but they do carry a lot of, I don't want to call it guilt, but I had to let them know that this was not their fault whatsoever.
Yeah.
And also my dad, that it wasn't his fault. I mean, he built the swing set for them to enjoy. He had no idea
Yeah.
what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
So fast forward, paramedics, ambulances got there. They tried to save her. They were working on her, and they did everything they could. And she was still alive whenever they left in the ambulance. And I knew it was really bad. They had kind of shooed my husband and I off to the side. My family did. And we were just praying, like on our knees, praying that she would be okay. But I knew whenever one of the paramedics came up and we asked if she was still alive, and it was a lady. She was just covered in blood, I guess from doing mouth to mouth. And she said, "I don't know." And I knew then that it was bad. So we followed the ambulance. They took her to a local hospital. And I remember going inside and seeing the doctor came out to talk to us because he prepared us that they were life flighting her to Mobile Hospital. And he was white as a ghost. It looked like he had no color in his face. He matched his coat. I think he was just in shock. It's a small town hospital. Like he's getting this high level trauma child. And so anyway, they transported her by life flight to another hospital. So we drove. That was an hour drive.
Oh gosh, Amy.
Yeah. And it was my stepdad, my mom, and me and my husband. And it felt like a million years, as you can imagine. We got to the hospital finally, and we were just praying, like calling everybody. And so my husband's parents lived in Birmingham, and they got in the car pretty much immediately and came down. I don't even think they packed anything. So we got to the second hospital where a lot of people started to gather, friends and family. The waiting room was packed. The doctor there, we finally got to see Anne Reese. We didn't get to see her at the first hospital. The second hospital, they allowed us to see her, and oh my goodness. It was just horrific. Seeing your baby there that you just were holding in your arms is now on a hospital bed with tubes everywhere. I know this is too much information probably, but too graphic, but just like they had shaved her head and there was just blood everywhere, all over the floor. And they were doing all they could to help her, but they decided to send her to a different hospital. So this is hospital 3. So that was another.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I believe they life flighted her that time. Yes. Or maybe it was ambulance. So we go to the third hospital, and that doctor pretty much immediately worked on her and then sat with my husband and myself. And she basically gave us that option. She said, "I need y'all to really think about Aris's future right now. I need you to think about Do you want her to live on machines? Because she keeps coding and we're bringing her back, but there's significant brain damage. And so we don't know what that's going to look like for her. And my husband immediately, my parents were in the room too. My husband immediately was like, "Oh, we're going to let her go." And I was like, "You're crazy. We are not letting her go." So we get in this little argument in the hospital because we had me as a mother. I'm like, I don't care where she is. And as far as if I'm in the hospital every day, I'll be here. I'll take care of her. I'll take care of her earthly body as long as I possibly can. And his, I guess, wiser thing to think of was we don't want her to live in a hospital room for the rest of her life, or we want her to live with Jesus, like big picture. And I'll tell you, our main goal, whenever we talked about this so many times for our children, is to get them to heaven. And that was right there in front of us. And that decision was haunting. And so, I mean, the doctor saw that we were not able to make that decision at that point. And she left the room and said, I just need y'all to think about it. And so when she left, we continued the conversation and it didn't get anywhere. And about 9:45, that doctor called us all in they've got these rooms at hospitals, which I absolutely hate now looking back, but there's no windows. It's like a room where they put ER patients, critical patients, they put the family so they can be alone and together. And we were all in there, and the doctor came in and she knelt down next to us and she said that she did everything she could, but the last time that she coded that she couldn't bring her back. And that was at 9:45, Christmas Eve, my birthday still, um, 2012. Mm. So this year will be 12 years of living with whew, deep, deep grief. There were some really dark Christmases. That first one, we went home. We went back to my parents' house and tried to sleep a little bit. I know my mom bathed me for days. Keep in mind, I'm 8 months pregnant, huge belly, but Christmas Day, 2012, hours after she passed away, we got up. It was storming outside, terrible weather, and people started flooding in, giving up their Christmas to be with us, support us and help us through. But those were some very dark memories, and I probably gave you way too much.
No, uh, you didn't. I hold this story that you've shared with us with just tenderness because I'm devastated for you. I'm I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't take anything away, and you have heard it a million times. And from your loved ones and friends and people that you meet now and you tell the story to, no one should have to endure what you've endured.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. I really don't. It feels so hard. I can feel the depth of the weightiness of what you've experienced, and it's your birthday, it was her birthday, your husband's birthday, it's Christmas, and you're expecting a new baby, and so just the weight of all of these real life situations that we just can't comprehend. I can hear your story and I can weep with you, but I just in my brain cannot comprehend what you have experienced. What I also can't comprehend is the way Jesus has shown up in your life and carried you through this and has taken what you just described as several very dark Christmases, to be fair. But I know you, Amy. I've talked to you several times, and you exude joy and faith, and you just have a beautiful peace about you that you don't even have to be in your presence for very long. And it's this lady has something special. And so,
As the
how do we
Lord.
go? Yeah. How do we go from this deep grief to how do we honor Anne Reese and how do we find joy in the holiday? I would have been like, Christmas is done. I don't ever want to celebrate it again. I mean, I'd be like, "Send me to a remote island that knows nothing about Christmas. Every
Yeah.
December, I'll be back in February," kinda
Well, and what stinks
attitude.
too is, like, I mean, the Christmas spirit comes alive in stores, on the radio, literally before Halloween.
Yeah.
So, in 3 months of reminders,
Mm,
because Christmas for us, especially at the beginning, was just a reminder of pain
mm.
and that deep, deep ache that we had that our two-year-old was never not with us anymore. Um, the first year the first year was obviously 2012, which was just she died on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I think we opened I don't even know,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, Court. I know we went to my stepdad's house and opened presents at his house, but I don't know how. I do not know how we did that. It wasn't Christmas Day, I don't think, but I think we were just in this fog of pain, and so but moving forward, the first real Christmas, like, at the first Christmas that we had a whole year of life without Eris, and then it's Christmas time again, I told my entire family, "Do not tell me happy birthday. Do not tell me Merry Christmas." I didn't put up a tree. I avoided stores as much as possible. I didn't shop for anyone. I did buy a few things for Janie, who was almost a 1-year-old at the time. So we did do a couple little things. But other than that, we decided to rent a house and all be together. We cooked, we hung out, and I was actually upset because the house was decorated because it was a rental. So decorated for Christmas. Looking back, I'm thankful because we did put Janie next to the tree and take a picture. And I'm so thankful I have that memory or in that picture. But yeah, I told everybody, don't tell me happy birthday. That was kind of the biggest thing. Christmas was like gonna be hard, but Lord, what in the world were you thinking whenever she died on my birthday? Like, there's a lot of anger there. And now I realize, have it so clearly. God has just showed me that the details of our story were so important because it needed to be a compelling story, like what you're talking about, for me to share. And one of my friends said to me, this is years later, she said, I think of Eris and you sharing a birthday together. Think of you sharing your earthly birthday and her having her heavenly birthday on the same day. And so now it's special, but that took a really long time to get there.
Sure.
A
Yeah.
lot of back and forth with the Lord, butting heads, moments that I'm not proud of being so angry with the Lord. Like, how, why, why?
And I don't know if you realize this, but our son, who I've talked a lot about on here, who has struggled with addiction for years, is healthy now and has been doing wonderful. And he and his wife have 2 children. He has a bonus daughter, and then they have 1 son together. And we were not able to be part of our first grandson's birth and things like that. There's some other parts to that story. Christian was not available at the time that he was born, and so his wife wanted to wait and have us be introduced to PJ after his dad was, and she wanted to honor Christian in that way, and we respected that. So fast forward, and now they're pregnant for another little boy, and this time it looks different. Christian's healthy, Christian's home, our relationships are being restored, and so now we very much are gonna be able to be part of this. And so the anticipation of that and the excitement, like, this is what it's supposed to look like, right? And he was due, like, we thought he was coming November 10th. No questions, baby's coming November 10th. He didn't come. And now it's the next weekend, and she still hasn't gone into labor. And so going into Thanksgiving week, my daddy was calling every day. "Do we have a baby yet?" "No, not yet, daddy. You're gonna be the first person I call. You're the first person I call." And she finally went into labor on Tuesday evening. Well, her water broke. She didn't go into full labor till Wednesday afternoon, but it was right as she was getting into active labor that my sister called and said that my daddy would not survive this.
Oh,
And my son is very, very close to my dad. They just have a really special relationship. My son was the first grandson. And so, again, another family full of girls. And so I have one brother, and then here comes my oldest son. And so they just were really, really close. And so I had to go tell him as he's preparing to be present for the birth of his second son, but the first time he's present and we're able to be there and we're as a family, I'm having to tell them that as soon as the baby comes, I've got to go because of my dad. And I just remember his wife, how do you, I mean, I'm thinking about you being pregnant in that moment.
yeah.
And I, I just can't even imagine it because I looked at her and said, "This is what's going on." I was so worried about her health going into labor, which she was supposed to be going into labor, just all the concerns, and she just kept looking at me going, "I understand that God gives life and he takes life away, but why would he do it in our family simultaneously?" And I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And she went on, I mean, within 3 hours, 4 hours, she was delivering the baby, and he was here, and he was happy and healthy, and they came home, and I was able to hold him and spend time with him before we left for Louisiana, and I was able to get to Louisiana in enough time. My dad was still very much awake and talking and aware of everything. His mind never went. And so I was able to show him pictures of Blake and he's here and things like that. And my son actually did end up making it to the hospital as well to spend time with him before he passed. But it's that, like what you just said, that it was your husband's birthday. It's Christmas. It's your birthday. And you mentioned it was Ann Reese's birthday was coming up as well. What, January 18th?
That's right. And we'd already sent out birthday invitations. We were having her party at a little trampoline place, and we were gonna do it January 5th because baby Zane, as Anne Reese called her, was due January 31st. And so we were trying to get Anne Reese's birthday stuff out of the way so we had time to get ready for the baby. But Janie actually came on January 11th, which was 18 days after Anne Reese passed away. And yeah, when she was born, I remember Courtney thinking, and this is gonna sound terrible, and I think I've talked about this a little bit, but I remember sitting at my mom's kitchen table with a family friend before Janie was born, but after Iris passed away, and I told her, I said, "I don't think I'm gonna be able to love this baby. Like, I cannot give my heart to another child because it could get ripped away again, right open." And as soon as Janie was born, looking at her little face, I just felt just so much peace and love. And I feel like the perfect timing was no coincidence. And I knew it in that moment that God had given us, to start to put one foot in front of the other. I had something to take care of. My motherly instinct, all I wanted to do when I was a kid was be a mom. So once Henry was born, I thought, oh my goodness, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, I want 10 more children. Oh, which my husband shut down very quickly. Oh, no, I don't. I want to. But anyway, so I remember looking at her little face when that emptiness I felt, then pain and everything between Henry's passing away and Janie being born was also a deep sorrow that I'm not a mom right now. And I didn't feel like I could be a loving mother to this child because I just felt too much pain. That if she were to be taken away, you might as well just go ahead and kill me. Let's all go together.
Mhm.
But like I said, when I looked in that little face and she was the prettiest baby, I just felt so much joy and peace. And it also reminded me, like, God wants us to experience joy even in the midst of deep sorrow. Uh, and one of the things I have to remind myself of regularly is heaven is real. I have a kid there. I have a lot of family there. And that's where I'm going. And that's where I want my girls to go and my husband and my family. I want us all to be together in heaven again. And so heavenly perspective has been huge for me. Just remembering that this earth is so temporary and our lives are temporary, but eternity with the Lord is forever. And it better be real.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm like, all right, God, I believe you. I really do. I love you, but man, this better be real.
Yeah.
So,
I've had that conversation a
mm,
couple of times over the past week that, am I right? Well, like my
yeah,
dad and I had pretty deep conversations about faith and religion. And I had changed religions several years, lots of years ago. And he didn't love that. He didn't love that at all. And it created some tension in our relationship because he didn't understand. He believed one thing and I believed another. At the core of it, we both believed the same things.
yeah,
It was the religious side of things that were different, the man made rules that were different. But it led us to great debate about scripture, about religion. It caused me to dig deeper into what do I believe and why do I believe it. But I've had the same question that you've just said over the course of the week. Am I right? Is it true? God, can you show me, send me a sign, or daddy, send me a sign that what I believe, the reason why I do this podcast, what we're teaching our children, is it true? Are we right? Because it is the only hope that we have, Amy. It's what, like you just said, it's what brings joy to you and peace to you in knowing that this is not where you're gonna be. You will be with Anne Reese again one day. And so let's talk about that. You get through the birth of baby Zane,
yes.
and your joy is not restored, but encouraged because of this baby. Of course, the busyness, I'm sure, of a newborn baby helped tremendously. Year one, Christmas is done. How do you, or what ways have you seen God prove to you it is real, Amy? This is
Oh,
real, and she is with me.
there's so many, Courtney. Oh my goodness. Going back though to our first Christmas, like I said, I told everybody, don't tell me happy birthday. Don't tell me Merry Christmas. First thing, my mom comes up to me, and I feel like this is one of those things that God told her to do because I needed to hear it. And she hugs me and she says, Happy birthday. And she says, I know you don't want me to say that, but you are worth celebrating. Your life is worth celebrating. And so that was honestly, I needed to hear that. I feel like God used her to share that word with me because I couldn't hear it myself.
Mhm.
Not as, and so that's just one of the small examples. I think one of the things back to my mom delivering that message, I feel like God has used people in such a powerful way in our lives. People that have showed up to help us in the first moments, people that have prayed for us, who've told me how her story affected them. Even years later, I got a Facebook message probably a year ago from one of the paramedics who was there that day. And he basically told me that Aries' story brought him to the Lord and got him through some really hard things because he could see that we were continuing to live our lives through this deep hurt. And he saw us there in our rawest pain ever, that we were still pointing to heaven. And I started a Facebook page. Basically, my friend started a Facebook page in the early days just to keep people informed of Amy and Davey would meals or the service, whatnot, and just how we were doing. And I took that over and I started writing and I wrote just raw how I was feeling. And it was always in the bathtub that I found the Lord. I don't know about anybody listening, but I would just go and take a bath and just pray and have the Lord just showed up in such a big way because he would change my prayers from pain and hurt. And he would just show me verses or he would show me truth that I've always know, but I couldn't see it. But he showed it to me in my words as I was writing. It would be turned around and have a different tone of peace and joy. And people started following. And I posted for 365 days, every single day. Just about. There were a couple of days that I missed. And I would post and I would put it on social media. And it got to be like 86,000 people, which back then that was a lot. Like now, that would be like,
It's
oh, that's
still a
good.
lot.
And those people still follow us. I don't post nearly as much, but having those really tender moments with the Lord and then putting them out there, it was almost like it was like me journaling and sharing it every day. But the healing was the best because as soon as I pushed submit or post, I knew that on the other side of those words and that post were real people and real prayers being sent up for us and on our behalf. And I feel like those got us through so much grief and so much of those really hard times. So with that said, people have been so inspirational or instrumental in our grief and carrying us through because there's a lot of times I didn't have the strength to pray anymore. People stepped in, total strangers. And so that was definitely one way. But like you said, signs. I pray for signs all the time. And as long as I have my eyes open and I'm like, oh, that wasn't a coincidence. That red bird that just landed outside, that is not a coincidence. Or that ladybug, we say Anne Reese we call her the ladybug. And the church where we had her service in January had an infestation of ladybugs. And the church was going to get rid of them. Like, they had called pest control and they were going to have them removed or killed, whatever. And so our pastor decided, hold on. Like she, for some reason, thought, no, we can't kill these. She felt like it was Anne Reese coming back and showing up, or at least the Lord sending the sign. Like, okay, y'all called her ladybug, and now literally we've infested the church in January of ladybugs. That was a really sweet one.
And this was post her funeral?
Yeah, so that her funeral was just late December, and then January, and then the pastor, I don't know if it's still like this, but the pastor told us year after year in January, ladybugs would come back. And when we see it, and you know what's really sad? Anytime my kids see a dead one, they're just like, Mom, no. So we had to have a little burial for this ladybug.
Okay. I know you're going to think this is crazy, but yesterday I haven't gotten out much, as you can imagine. It's weird. There's just grief hits you at weird times and weird things. I kind of don't want to be around people that are like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It makes it feel real. And I feel better when I pretend like it's not, even though I know it is. And yesterday, my husband was like, let's go run an errand, hop in the truck, come with me. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go with you. And when I got in, there was a ladybug. Oh, wow. I know. There was a ladybug that flew and landed right on the dashboard. And I was like, what are you doing? And I picked it up and let it go back out. So now she's sad. I know. I'm never going to see ladybugs the same. Now I'm going to be like, hey, Anne Reese, you're coming to visit.
That's sweet.
So
what
sweet.
I know. What are things that remind you of your dad? Like, will it be a butterfly or red bird, or have you gotten there yet?
I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't.
I feel like that comes. It's not like an immediate thing.
Yeah.
A connection to,
Yeah. I did realize yesterday after I ran that errand with my husband, he had to go to an appointment and I had to go pick up our son from school. And I hopped in the car and I was driving down the road. And I immediately had a thought of, oh, I need to call daddy and check on him. And I realized when I would get in the car by myself, which is few and far between, kids and husband and things like that, anytime I was in the car alone is when I would call him because he was hard of hearing. So I could be as loud as I needed to be and I could have him on speaker as loud as he needed to be. And it was like I had a moment of not doing anything, not the busyness of life, and I could check in with him. And so it was a little bit of a gut punch yesterday when I realized I don't want to be in the car by myself at all.
Yeah.
And so I think those things are going to continue to happen where you're going to realize, oh, I would have never thought that an empty car would remind me of him. And I'm sure you
I was
probably
the same.
experienced that as well.
I mean, and you know what though? I have to say, for me, the empty car was hard, and But it was also a sweet time. It turned out to be a sweet time and I didn't want to be alone at all. But those times, like I said, I'm going to be alone when I'm in the bathtub or alone when I'm driving in my car. But those times were the times that the Lord just spoke louder because I'd be sobbing and praying. And I don't know if it would be a song that would come on. Oceans, do you remember the song
Mhm.
Oceans?
Yeah.
That had come out very close to whenever Amory's passed away. And I just remember that song coming on and sobbing and just praying, like, Lord, you've got to help me through this because I cannot do this alone. There's no possible way. And there were so many moments of just sweet times that the Lord spoke so gently or sent a sign in those moments. But that in the quiet was whenever I heard and felt the Lord the most. Middle of the night. Have you been sleeping well, by the way?
No. But I don't sleep
Yeah.
well at all. The middle of the night
Uh,
is when God shows up for me pretty
yeah.
regularly anyway. But no, I haven't slept great.
Mm. But those are also the times that it's like the times where you're forced to be alone.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm an extrovert. I want to be with people all the time. And especially when I was grieving so deeply, I wanted to be surrounded by people as a distraction.
Mm.
And it was those times when I was alone in the bathtub or in my car or in the middle of the night feeding a baby that God was just so clear
Mm.
that he was there. But yeah, those times were just really tough. And when I feel like grief is one of those things this year is going to be so hard for you, Courtney, and I'm just so sorry for that. And you'll probably just want to rush through it. You want to rush
Mhm.
through the holidays and get them over with so you can feel a sense of normalcy because you don't really feel like celebrating, but you're being forced to because you have a family and now a new baby. And so you feel that forced smile that you don't really want to have. But as the years have gone on for us, that smile becomes more real. And the moments of let's celebrate Aries becomes um, more important than being sad. And one of the things I talked to you about this last year, I don't even know if you remember this. So for me, laying out clear expectations for the holidays has been very important. And so one of the expectations, we moved to Birmingham, my husband and I, and our girls, literally 6 months after Henry's died. I was pulled away from my family, my mom,
Oh,
everybody.
wow.
Yeah. And so we moved to Birmingham and I kept that interstate hot. So living in Birmingham, my expectation was, okay, I have to be at Aries' grave on Christmas Eve. So we have to spend Christmas in Daphne with my family.
And what's the distance? How far is that?
About 3.5, 4 hours. But add in
Okay.
baby like we had. And
That's a trek.
it is. And when the kids were little, we were able to pretend that Santa came
Mm.
earlier and then we could really just enjoy the holidays. Well, we can't do that anymore. And so it's become harder to be down there on Christmas Eve. And so our solution was we're going to be down there a few days before Christmas. We'll be there for Christmas Eve. Then we'll get in the car, drive home, and then we'll have Christmas morning at our own house. Now, let me tell you how that worked out. It ended up being my husband and I very rarely fight. We just get along. I feel like it's just the Lord, because, most marriages end after a death of a child. And so I feel like this was just a sweet gift that we have such a great, close relationship. So our biggest fight of the year is Christmas Eve night because we get home. We've been with my family for 3 or 4 days. Now we've got to get everything ready for the special Christmas. We've driven. We're so exhausted. And so last year, year
Coupled
10,
in, there's still memories. There's still grief. It's your birthday.
right? It's my husband's birthday 2 days before.
Yeah.
So yeah, it ended up being the biggest fight of the year. And then we don't enjoy Christmas Day because
Yeah.
we're just like, hey, I'm ready for this to be over with.
Mhm.
And so last year, after 10 years, the 11th year, my husband put his foot down and he said, we are not going to be at the cemetery on Christmas Eve. What? I was like, because he just said it's too much. We have to figure out something else. And I prayed about it and I prayed about it and I thought, okay, we can do this. I can do this. And so we decided to take a trip last year, which was year 11. We went to New York City. We came home. That was before Christmas. Came home, had a Christmas Eve celebration for Aunt Reese at our own home. And it was the sweetest thing, Courtney. We went to church that morning. I was totally fine. God, you are redeeming this day for us. We don't have to be at the cemetery on Christmas Day. That's not where Aunt Reese, on Christmas Eve. That is not where Aunt Reese is. And so last year was so special because I'd gotten little candles for everyone to hold. And these were dear friends who walked this journey with us for many years, and a lot of them who knew Aunt Reese and their children. And we all stood around the table and talked about memories of her and had cake and sang songs that she loved, like Jesus Loves Me. That was one of her favorites. And You Are My Sunshine as well. And it was such a sweet moment, but it took 10 years, Courtney, for us to change that tradition.
Mhm.
In year 12, that's what we're on now. We decided to do the same thing as last year because it was such a sweet time. And then the next, after on the 26th, we went down south as we will this year and go to the cemetery on the 27th, like with the same crew who always goes. But I feel like it literally took 10 years for us to do something different and for me to be okay with breaking the tradition that we'd always kept. And I feel like that was really a powerful testament of my husband just stepping in and saying, "You're going to be okay." And for me, having to spend a lot of time with the Lord, making sure that I was going to be okay. And then for him to prove I was okay
Yeah.
on that day.
Mhm. In my previous interviews with a couple of people, we've talked about that during the holidays. It's okay to do it different if you need to do it different. And so kudos to your husband for saying, we need this and really leading you. Because I do remember last year when you were posting about y'all's trip and and you and I talking about it, how wonderful it was. And it gives an opportunity for your kids to celebrate her and the holiday, like you said, versus it always being the grieving of the holiday. The grief is not going to go away, but how do we celebrate with the grief? And so this may be an on the spot question, so I'll give you a second, but
Okay.
there's a couple of tips. Someone is grieving. I am grieving. You have been there. You are continuing to grieve. You will grieve, and we will all grieve our losses until we meet again in eternity. And so, what are some things we can do during the holidays? I think you just gave us one. Change the tradition if you need to.
Mhm. I think
Let
find a
it
way.
look different. What else
Yeah.
can we do to get through the holidays and capture the joy and not sit in the grief?
I think a plan is huge. Come up with a plan of how are you going to, what are your expectations for the holidays? Set clear boundaries with people, family members. For us, it was, I knew I wanted to be at the cemetery on Christmas Eve for all those years and just telling people, like, this is what time we're going to be there. Be there if you can, but we're not going to adjust it for everybody's schedule because the holidays gets hard that way. Adjusting, oh, we go to my grandma's on that day or whatever. If you can be there, if not, that's fine. But finding a way to honor their memory is one of the things that we do every year. So we give out an ornament every year. And it started a sweet tradition a long time ago. I think it was like the second year we all met at the cemetery and I'd brought an ornament my friend had painted with little ladybugs on it and had Aunt Reese's name. And we handed those out, and it has become the sweetest tradition. So this year, and I never tell any of the family members or friends what the ornament's going to be. I want it to be a surprise. And we've done everything from a sweet reindeer, because Aunt Reese loved this I'm not a reindeer, excuse me, a sweet deer, because Aunt Reese loved a deer at the zoo so much. We would have to go visit that deer regularly.
Oh,
I know. And the deer's name was Miracle.
of course it
So,
was.
of course.
Of course it was.
But yeah, the family now, a lot of our family members, like my sister, she sent me a picture the other day and she has a specific tree in her house because now she has 11 ornaments, 10 or 11 from every year. And it's her Aunt Reese tree. And they're all ornaments that she has because of that special thing. And just bringing a good way to celebrate and remember that's tangible, that you can actually hold it in your hands. I feel like that's powerful for us anyway. Another one that I would say is share memories. look up pictures, look back at pictures, watch videos. Yes, it's going to make you sad, but you want to hold those memories special in your heart and share them with your friends and family. Last year around the table, we had candles and pass them around and all lit the candle and shared memories of Anne Reese. And one of the ones that came out was when I was big and pregnant with baby Zane. And we were at a grocery store, I think it was Target, walking around all the aisles. And this man came up and was talking to Anne Reese and just talking to a little 2-year-old. And he had a really big belly as well. Anne Reese said, Mom, look, he has a baby in his belly too. Yeah. And that's one of our favorite memories. And that came up last year. And just thinking about our loved ones who've passed. I know it's painful, but it's just so, we have to hold on to them. We have to hold on to those memories. And one of the ways to hold on to them is to share them so that we never forget. And so sharing memories is a big one, and watching videos. And I love Facebook, where it comes up, the past
The
stuff.
time hop.
Yes. And at this time of year, especially, because I posted a lot during this time of year over the years, it's all these pictures of Anne Reese and how I was feeling and memories that I was sharing and memories that I probably hadn't thought of in a long time that I'm so thankful that pop up and I can relive those memories. And I also think just support. If you're not in with a counselor, we did a lot of counseling, Christian counseling, and I just started back with a counselor recently to prepare myself for the holidays because it is the hardest time of year for us. And so I think that for sure, get in with a counselor or grief support. There's grief supports all over the place at
Right.
different churches. Just get into a community too that is experiencing what you're experiencing and helps you feel not so alone, for sure.
I think the memories are so sweet too, with you having the two girls that never got to see
Yeah.
Anne Reese. And so you keep her alive for them as well. How have they handled the holidays?
One of the things that my husband and I decided a long time ago was that we would keep Anne Reese's spirit alive in our home. We would share memories. Like we could have just never told our kids about this or as in depth as we have, or never told our kids about her, but we chose not to do that. And now they have to experience grief with us, even though they never met her, like you said. It's been harder since they've gotten older and they understand the depth of, oh man, I could have a big sister right now. She would be starting to drive. That's been the conversation going on. And so, and my kids have friends who are 14 years older, and my oldest will just be like, Mom, she's like my big sister. And our neighbor who babysits for us, she's 16. She's stepped into that role as big sister. She takes them to do stuff all the time and she loves them, genuinely loves them. And I think she's having just as much fun as they are. It's not like a job to her. And Jamie will say a lot, Mom, do you think that's how Anne Reese would be? Do you think she would take us to do things and she'd let us hang out? I'm like, probably, but you'd probably be fighting a whole bunch too.
Yeah.
But last year too, this is really sweet. I always tell their teachers at the beginning of the year about Anne Reese, and then also to be aware that the holidays, it might show up or they might say something about it. Courtney, fourth grade, Janie's teacher threw a birthday party for Anne Reese on her birthday. How sweet is that? They had balloons. She got cake. They let the balloons go to heaven. It was the sweetest thing ever. And I didn't even know anything about it. She just asked, do you mind if we celebrate her? And I get the pictures and I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
But that was a really sweet way to honor her. But yeah, the girls are, I would say it's hit them harder since they've gotten older and the understanding. They're sad because they don't have a big sister. They ask what it would be like a lot. And all we can do is tell them, yeah, we understand. It hurts. Mommy thinks about that too. Mommy thinks about what she would be like at 14 and almost 15 years old. And mommy gets jealous too when I see a 14-year-old with a younger sibling. Like my heart aches because that's come up. The jealousy of, and I don't want to say the word jealous. That sounds bad, but just the longing. Yeah.
The longing for what should have been.
Right. But our biggest thing is we just point them to heaven. That's all we can do is just say, hey, guess what? She is right where she's supposed to be, and we're going to be there too one day. So it changes every year. I feel like the pain gets a little deeper for the kids, but we try to make sure to cover it in joy as much as we can as well. And the joy of heaven.
Mhm. How do you teach your kids that God is good
Mm.
and heaven is real when your family has experienced such great loss?
I think what you said
But
earlier.
like you just said, don't mean to interrupt you because I want you to say it. You could have just not told them about Anne Reese. You could have pretended that it didn't happen and not introduced them to this grief. You could have easily said, I'm angry and stayed. You said you were angry. You could have stayed in that anger and been like, a good God wouldn't do this.
Mm.
So, how do we reconcile that?
Well, that would have been the easy thing to do, right?
Mhm.
To push it under the rug. And I actually remember we had a family friend who I never knew had a child who passed away. And after Anne Reese passed away, she came to me and said, do not do what I did. She said, I took away every picture. We moved. I told my kids never to mention his name again. And she said it was the worst thing she could have done. And I held that really close because that was advice that I needed to hear because I didn't know what I was going to do or what we were going to do. But I feel that God has just revealed so many times through signs, through peace that we felt, that He's real and He's got us. And His word, His Bible is true, and that heaven is right around the corner. And I actually wrote down this verse to share because I think the hope of eternal life is the main thing that I look to and I point my kids to and our family to. This world is so broken. And even studying for a test, okay, this isn't that big of a deal if you get a B. Like, the pressures of this world are crazy. And I think
Yeah.
having an eternal perspective has just helped us so much. But this verse in Revelation 21:4.
Stop. Stop. What in the world? Okay.
Do you have chills? I have chills. I don't even know what you're going to say.
Because that's the verse I chose for my dad's card.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well,
I've got
thank you,
goose.
Jesus. That is it, Courtney. That is it.
Okay. I'm not going to lose it. I'm not going to lose it. Read the verse.
Okay. Man, God is good. Thank you, Lord. But that's it. That's it. Revelation 21:4. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. For the old order of things has passed away. And I feel like this verse offers hope for a future without sorrow in heaven. And that's the only place we'll experience it. That is amazing, though. God is so good. He's just
Say it.
so good. There's no
Yeah.
coincidences at all.
No. Last on the Monday of we were having the rosary that night and the funeral on Tuesday. And that Monday, I had gathered all the pictures from the siblings to put together the slideshow. And I was communicating with the funeral home. I was doing some of those behind the scene things. And I had received a text from the funeral director and I saw it and I was like, okay, they needed a verse to go on the
Yeah.
back of these cards that were going to be. And I was like, I've got to call the siblings. We were all in a group text. And then shortly after that, I got squirreled to something else because we went to Lake Charles because he was in ICU. And then we didn't go prepared for him to pass, of course. So then we had to come home to Texas, get clothes, get everybody together. I had kids in from college. They did not bring clothes home for Thanksgiving so we're like shopping and frantically getting everything ready. And so my niece calls me and she's, hey, I came by the funeral home to drop off food. They need a verse. They need a verse. They need a verse. And they've got a book here. And so she started reading these things to me. And I was like, no, I was like, give me a minute, give me a minute. And I just started turning through scripture and I was like, God, I need you to give me a verse. And that's what he gave me was Revelation 21:4. I'm blown away. Like my breath is taken away because that's God saying, I see both of you.
Yes.
I am in this with both of you,
Mm.
and there will be no more weeping, and there will be no more mourning, and death will be no more because of what Jesus has done on the cross. And he is up there with your sweet baby and my sweet daddy and all of our loved ones. Cause I know right before Thanksgiving, you lost another grandparent. And it's just a reminder of his faithfulness to us.
It
Wow.
is.
Right here in real time. Like
In real time.
I'm not editing any of this because this is I hope the listener sees this is a real time moment of God saying, I'm very present and I am real.
And proving to us. He's, "Look, here you go. You want proof? Here it is."
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but it's up to us to choose to see it too.
Right.
Yeah. Choosing him and choosing his goodness and choosing to see those moments and to value them for what they are. Because
Mhm.
there's and I guarantee you, it'll happen to you more than just this time. God will
Mm.
keep showing you little things like that, that they are not a coincidence. It is ordained, it is part of his plan, it is part of how he carries us through, this grief in this world with pain.
Yeah. I ask at the end of every show if there's something that you're praying for that we could join with you in prayer. Would you share with us what you're praying for?
Absolutely. I just pray just for our girls
Mhm.
to stay hopeful and for me to be able to point them to heaven in the way that I have been able to see heaven. It's so real. I pray that they keep that and they don't let the pain of anything that's coming their way, but especially this holiday season coming up, they don't let the grief um over overtake their joy because there's so much to be thankful for. Like Jesus was born for us. And I just pray that I'm able to, in my sadness and my grief, not burden them too much with it and be very aware of their needs. Because as like I said, as they've gotten older, they're more aware of the hole that is in our family with missing Anne Reese. And so I just want to make sure that I'm pointing them and I pray that God just helps me to point them to say the right words, to point them in the right direction, that you can live life joyful with grief and with pain.
Mm.
And yeah, I guess that's my prayer
Yeah.
for now. And just for anybody else out there grieving like yourself, I have such a heart for anybody who's going through pain and sorrow after losing someone. I just pray that God will continue to use me as well in whatever way he sees fit, whether it's stuff like this or one day I'd love to write a book. I don't think the time is right. I've tried before and then stuff happens and I feel like the enemy is so real in squashing that dream, but I feel like God is going to deliver that book. And even I just want it for my kids. I want my
Yeah.
kids to have it. I don't care about anybody else reading it. I want to write something where they have that they can hold on to and I can take them back to those raw moments of grief and how God got me through those times. And they can read that and they can see, oh my goodness, if mom can get through that, I can get
Mm.
through any. And so I
And
guess
such a testimony.
yeah, I guess I just pray that God continues to use me to help others and that I can help the girls with this grief as well.
Mhm. I know that it would be an incredible book.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate your encouragement that I know your story is not easy. You tell it with such grace and with such hope. And gosh, I just appreciate you so much. I really do. Your encouragement, your example of faith and hope and joy. And so I don't want to end this show on a heavy note. I want to end it a little fun. And one of the things that I've asked of everybody, is there a recipe or you've already mentioned the tradition of the ornaments that are a non-negotiable for your family. Is there a recipe that you're like, this is non-negotiable. We're going to cook this every year that you would share with us?
Sure. It's actually called a chess cake, and it's the cake that Anne Reese and I were baking Christmas Eve morning that she passed away. And a sweet note about that, and I'm so glad you asked me. So that cake we ended up giving it to, our sweet family friend, Beth, took the cake and she put it in her freezer because I did not want to get rid of it. What in the world? I'm a hoarder because of Aunt Reese's death. Because I can't get rid of any of her clothes. I used to make her clothes. And so another sweet thing we have is my cousin took all of her the appliques were so big back then. And she took
Mhm.
all of those, and she made quilts out of them. And they're such a treasure. But Beth took the cake and stored it. And just this year, literally a month ago, it's crazy you're asking me about this, her power went out. And the cake it'd been in there for almost 12 years. And
Oh my goodness.
yeah,
Your
she had like
friend has
uh
held the cake that you baked with Ann Reese for 12 years.
yes. And she called me, Courtney, and she was devastated. She talked to my mom about it because she was like, how am I going to tell Amy that this cake I have to throw it away. Like, I cannot keep this cake anymore. It's a health hazard. Because it become unfrozen. And I was like, anyway, so she called, and I'm telling you, my heart sank because I thought something really bad had happened. Because I need to tell you something. I know this is going to upset you. And when she said it, yes, it hurt. I thought, oh, there's one more thing of Aunt Reese's that's no longer of this earth. It's gone. But I also was like, Beth, it's okay. I promise it is not a big deal. I'm glad you threw away the health hazard. But yes, she has kept that in her. And so with that said, our kids, our family, we make that cake every Christmas Eve or around that time if we can't make it on actual Christmas Eve. But we always eat it around that time. And so the cake that had her probably snot in it, let's be honest, because she was helping me cook and she had a snotty nose that day.
Yeah.
That cake is no longer, but it lasted for almost 12 years in a dear, dear, dear friend's freezer. I think she had the freezer in her garage, like nothing else was even in it. It was literally just the cake.
Just the cake. Oh
Yep.
my gosh. What a sweet friend. What a
I know,
sweet
right?
friend.
I know, to hold on to it for that long. And she got like a generator for it as well, because when the power would go off for like hurricanes, she was like, made sure that she saved this cake. And so she was so devastated. But of course, I was like, it's okay.
Oh my goodness.
No, isn't that funny? But
Yeah.
anyway, I hope your listeners will go bake that cake because it's
Yeah.
delicious. And just think of Aunt Reese and also sweet friendship as they're eating it.
Yeah. That is a very sweet friendship. And it's a reminder that we need to be that kind of friend to people, especially during this time. We need each other. That was one of the things that you had mentioned in our questions, that don't isolate and
Yes.
stay in your community. And you're a great example of that. And your community has been a great example of how to carry you through this, even 12 years later with a cake.
Yeah. And another thing our community, our neighbors did, and Christmas, like December 1st, they all signed up for different days. They would bring a happy on the porch, and it lasted for years and years. They don't do it anymore, but they'll do like flowers on Christmas Eve. But it's just with a little note to say, hey, we're praying for you. Hey, we're thinking of you this time of year. And that really means a lot. Being carried by the community has been so huge for us because, like I told you, I'm an extrovert. I love people. And so that's been huge. And I hope, what I'm able to teach my kids going forward as well, that we need to love on other people during their time of grief, hurt.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your vulnerability, and your encouragement. I know that I'm not the only person that really needs to hear this at this time. And I do hope that you have a very happy birthday, because you do deserve to be celebrated.
That means
And
a
happy
lot.
birthday to your husband.
Thank
And
you.
Merry Christmas. And then
Thank
all
you.
the celebrations in the new year. So
Thank you,
Thanks so
Courtney.
much.
It's an honor to be with you today.
thanks so much for listening to The Mom Show with Courtney Doyle. Today's episode is dedicated in memory of Ann Reese, my daddy Jack, and all those who have gone before us. May we hold grief loose and joy tight this holiday season. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2025.